Hello and welcome to the SWS Classroom Chat. I'm here at the Army Public School in Bolaram in Sikandrabad, and we are here to discuss the strategies for the CBSE Class 12 English syllabus. And with me is Aruna Dommati, Vice Principal of the school, also English faculty. Ma'am, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
The whole idea, ma'am, is to tell the students what they should do and what they should not do as far as the English examination is concerned for class 12 students. Now, we'll start with the literature part first. How do students, because students essentially think English, last minute studies, enough focus
Very
on
true.
the science and the maths and the commerce. So, what should be the strategy as far as studying English is concerned? Let's start with the literature part first.
Very correctly brought out, Mr. Sudhir, that what happens is in class 12, the children are more focused towards their core subjects and they kind of neglect language. So, English is kept for the 11th hour. Generally, they are more focused toward their core subject. That is the mistake which generally children do. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be actually taking it on a daily basis. They should be catering minimum half an hour on a daily basis so that they are able to balance all the subjects together. But then unfortunately this doesn't happen. Now with exams there within a month's time, I think now children should do that. They should ensure that they are giving at least an hour of time to English as well, because this is one subject which will actually boost their percentage like anything.
So, if I had to start with the literature part, the Flamingo and the Vista, the two textbooks, what should be the approach towards studying them? Read the text as many times as possible?
Exactly. There is no shortcut. When it comes to literature, a thorough reading of the textbook is what is going to help them. Now, what we need to understand here is literature part is there for 40 marks in the syllabus, out of which 16 is for MCQs based on the lessons and the poems that they have in the syllabus. So, unless they thoroughly read, and when they are reading, they should be with a pencil, they should try and underline all the important phrases, the difficult words. They should know the meanings, because you never know what kind language paper is such that you cannot predict the questions like other subjects. So they should be well prepared, and that will happen only when they thoroughly read. And one or two reading will not help, and there has to be minimum 4 or 5 reading. And they should not leave any chapter or any poem thinking that it is difficult. They shouldn't. Even if it is difficult, they should at least make an attempt to read it twice or thrice.
So, in terms of the length of the answers, they need to kind of ensure that they keep within the word limit.
Definitely. Now, when it comes to literature, there are MCQs, there are short answers, there are long answers. Students should stick to the word limit that is given to them, because generally a language paper is quite lengthy. Lengthy because they have to read, they have to write, they have to think, and they have to put the answer,
even
analyze and put their thoughts in a very cohesive manner. So that is what makes it lengthy. So unless they stick to the word limit given, they will not be able to finish the paper in time.
So you mentioned MCQs, short answers, and then the long answers. So while studying the same poem or the same story, does the approach, I mean, do students need to adopt a different approach on how to, say, the last lesson or Aunt Jennifer's Tigers? How do you prepare for an MCQ different from a long answer?
See, MCQ is basically comprehension based questions, okay, and when it comes to long answer, they are value based questions, okay, where the child has to analyze and link it to the day-to-day life situations. So the approach definitely is slightly different, because there, where in MCQ, reading of the chapters, understanding, comprehension would be helpful for the child. But when it comes to long answers, critically analyze the situation, understand what value has been asked or what case has been discussed there, situation has been given, link it to the answer, link it to the lesson which has been read, cite examples from the lesson and connect it with the answer. That is when they'll be able to score better.
So in your pre-board examinations, what were the common mistakes that your students were making, or generally speaking, from your past experience, what are the common mistakes that students make, the students should try and avoid this time?
Generally, what children do is when it comes to MCQs, it is like if they have understood, they will do it. So there's no problem. Short answers also, if they have read through the lessons, they are able to get the marks. But when it comes to long answers where they are supposed to analyze, think critically and connect it to the lesson, that is where the common error happens. What children do is they only answer it in a very generic way, emphasizing on the situation or the value that has been asked in the question. They forget to link it to the lesson that they have read or give examples and connect it with this. This is the major mistake that children do and fail to score more marks in long answers.
Okay.
That is where the major problem comes.
Okay. Now let's come to the unseen passages, the comprehension part. Again, what are the common mistakes that students make? Is there an inability to analyze in a proper manner? And should students read the passage first, maybe a couple of times, and then go on to the questions? Because there is another point of view that which says that go through the questions and then try to find the answers in the passage. What would you suggest?
Sir, what I would say is reading is something which cannot be inculcated overnight. So it has to be an ongoing process. Generally, children should be told to inculcate that habit of reading, because this will help them in their reading section when it comes to exam. Now here what happens is, from an exam point of view, if you have to say, then what children should do is, first they should utilize the reading time that is given to them, the 15 minutes time that is given to them. They should utilize it for thorough reading of the passages.
Okay.
So first what they should do is make a reading, understand, then read the questions that are given there thoroughly, and then again read the passage. So utilize your 15 minutes for the comprehension section.
Okay.
So that you don't waste too much of time in reading it later. So that is one thing. And second thing here is that children will have to understand now, no longer reading passages are meant only to assess their comprehension skills. When it comes to class 12th, it is assessing their higher language skills, higher order language skills. So there what they need to understand is, at times the passage can be where the questions can be put to analyze, interfere, reading between the lines, where they have to infer the information from there. And then there are factual passages where they are given certain visual clues and all, where they need data, or they have to analyze it.
Yes.
And then they have to put their thoughts. So there careful reading is required, and simultaneously their mind should work that how they need to correlate it with the question. So a thorough reading of the question and then reading the passage will definitely help them to score better.
So since you mentioned that during the initial reading time that is provided, they should read these passages. So would it be a good idea to actually start answering with the unseen passages itself, or should they try to do the literature part first?
No, they should go. CBSE, when they make the question paper, in terms of time management, which is very much required for a language paper. When CBSE has designed the paper, I'm sure there's a lot of thought process that has gone, and of course they should attempt the paper in the same order, section A, B and C. Because A is where they need to read, analyze, comprehend and then answer. So that would be more time consuming. So they should invest their reading time into this and then come to writing section. Second is writing section.
No, I am asking this because it should not be a case where the student ends up spending too much time on section A itself.
No.
That risk is not there.
If they utilize their 15 minutes properly for reading the comprehension, when the writing time starts, they will be well prepared with their answers and they'll straight away write their answers. So they're not losing their writing time for again reading the passages. And that time saving can help them in utilizing the time for writing section. So writing section, where again they have to think, they have to get ideas, they have to get varied points, put them in logical order, then put them in correct grammatical sentences. So there again some time is required for them. So that time can be best utilized in the writing. Literature section, because they are already thorough with the lessons, they know, they have been reading it throughout. Not that the other sections they are not done, but this is something
more familiarity.
So
now we come to the notice writing, and there's also letter writing.
Yes.
Right. Again, I talk about the mistakes that students make when they do notice writing. Lack of being concise and miserly with the words. Is that a problem?
Yeah, that is one problem. And the other problem is format. writing skills, when it is about writing skills, one thing is that they should be thorough with the formats. Format gives a neat structure to their write-up, and of course they have to be mindful of the word limit that is given there. So
Yeah.
they have to ensure that their notice gives accurate information given in the question within the stipulated word limit. So that they need to, if they are thorough with the format, and if they know how to put the information in concise form, I'm sure they'll get full marks there.
Okay. I mean, since you mentioned the word limit, do students get penalized severely if they exceed the word limit?
Of course,
They do.
They do. Not severely, but CBSE is quite student friendly. So they do deduct marks because there is bifurcation of marks.
Yeah.
Like format gets 1 mark, content
Yes.
gets 2 marks.
Yes.
Then it is your expression which gets 2 marks.
Yes.
So you are accordingly penalized.
Accordingly penalized. So finally, I mean, let me put this entire thing differently. Where do students actually end up losing marks quite often, which they should try and avoid this time?
I think in each section there are certain parts where children tend to lose marks. First is if you take reading section, it is because they don't do careful reading. So of course their analysis go wrong, and with the new format there are questions based on analogy.
Yeah.
There are questions where they need to infer, they need to give their own opinion. So unless they make a thorough reading,
They won't
that
be
is
able
not
to.
possible. So that is one thing where they have to be very careful. Sometimes what happens is they get vocabulary based question.
Yeah.
So children are not able, sometimes children are not able to get the meaning. So they just panic and they leave the question. They shouldn't be doing that. They should rather read that particular line
you may get an
thoroughly, and
idea.
you may get an idea.
Yeah.
So shouldn't leave it for that thing. Then when it comes to writing, they actually do not practice much of writing. They think ki ho jayega. It is
And there's also an lack of awareness about civic issues, because sometimes letter writing.
that is why we tell our students to have the habit of reading newspapers, especially the editorial section. If they are reading it on a daily basis, that works as a database for their.
Even if they read the page 3 and 4, the civic issues
That
are
is
there on the
enough.
city
That
pages.
is enough.
So
That is
even
enough.
That would be good enough.
Yeah.
So that's a major
That
issue.
is one thing. And the grammar, they should be little careful when it comes to class 12th. There's certain level of language that is expected from them. So grammatical errors they should avoid. And there's a misconception among students that they'll get more marks if they use difficult words. That is not the criteria here. The criteria is, even if you use simple words, simple sentences,
Should be accurate.
it should be accurate. So accuracy is more important there.
Yeah.
So it can be expressed in simple terms. Now when it comes to literature, literature is again all about reading, thorough reading of the chapters,
Yeah.
and then putting the examples from the lessons in your answers, correlating it. That is well. So if children avoid these things and are mindful about these things, I'm sure they'll do very well.
Right. Okay, fine. Thank you very much for all these details, and I'm sure the students will gain a lot from this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.